Well, hello, you good people, friends, lovers. Thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy. Yes,
Hi.
Robert Nasir, Amy Nasir, and Dr. Robert Garmong is joining us for a very special interview in which we've got to talk to you good people out there because you have done something amazing. But first, real quick, today is Sunday, July 23rd, 2023, the 204th day of this, your best year yet. Some of you are helping make it the best year yet for some of us out here. Too cool. After today, you've got 161 days left to make it your best year. You've got 155 days until Christmas, but what Amy cares about. 100 days until Halloween. We're at the 100-day mark. That's practically tomorrow. I hope you have started your decorations, picked out your costumes, chosen your favorite candy. We'll talk more about that in the weeks to come. And on this date, real quick, I'm going to do the on this date real quick because we've got a lot to talk about today.
Yes, we do.
On this date, July 23rd, back in 1967, you know we broadcast this show live from Motown, from Detroit, Michigan. 1967, the Detroit Riots. The riots in Detroit, more than 7,000 people arrested, 43 people killed, 1,700 stores were looted, nearly 1,400 buildings burned, leaving 5,000 people homeless. $50 million in property damage. I mentioned this. You know, I've talked about the Watts riots. I've talked about the various riots through the ages. First of all, the thing to know is, if you think BLM were riots, you're right. Bad stuff, got to be fought, largely over racial issues. But if you think you know what race riots are, man, I was 5 years old in Detroit back then. You don't know what race riots are. I'm not saying everything's great now, but...
You were arrested, right?
I was arrested for rioting.
You,
no, I was, in diapers. Yeah, no. Well, I was out of diapers by then, but I only make the point that we're living in history, but history has never been smooth sailing. Look it up. Link is in the show notes. Always the show notes. Updated at youtube.com/Robert Nasir in this video and on Facebook. In fact, let me take a look because I've got to make sure we got... Yes, they are both streaming, and we've got the author, Jim Ashley, and Petya, the ace investor Petya, are both in the chat on Facebook. Thank you for that. Everybody else is on YouTube, and that's good because we're trying to get those YouTube numbers up. So thank you for joining us, Equal to Reality. Jim Ashley's on there as well. Always gives us that double whammy. Very much appreciated. Real quick, a happy birthday to Daniel Radcliffe. Turns 34 years old today. He has been dissing J.K. Rowling, somebody he should be grateful to beyond belief, but on his birthday, I'm not going to call him out for that. I'm just going to say, good job, Harry Potter. Good job, Daniel
Don't mention
Radcliffe.
That at all. Just,
I'm not going to mention what I'm not going to mention.
No.
Let me mention what I'm not going to mention. Also, it's National Vanilla Ice Cream Day. I tried, all of my conservative friends, and that's most of us, right, are going to give me a hard time for this. I tried Ben & Jerry's ice cream yesterday for the first time. Now, what do you do if you go, and we went to the store in Ann Arbor. You know, that's practically California, Michigan. Ann Arbor, Michigan, Ben & Jerry's, went inside the store. What flavor Ben & Jerry's ice cream do you think I tried?
You ordered the Tears of Socialism.
Yes, it's National Vanilla Ice Cream Day, and I had vanilla ice cream at Ben & Jerry's. The only Ben & Jerry's I've ever had is vanilla ice cream.
I had a little baby scoop of espresso, like coffee, like really, really rich in chocolate and coffee. It was really good, actually.
That is both super hardcore and extremely self-disciplined. Finally, it's National Parents Day. National Parents Day. Why would we talk about that? Oh. Well, we talked a lot about parenting. Big gratitude to all of you parents out there, and now I want to bring in Dr. Robert Garmong, a parent who we are celebrating today, who is going through an incredible journey, and yet seeing your son on video, hearing him in the background of that interview video, but seeing the pictures that you post, man, you are on a tough journey, and yet the kid just seems charming as heck. He seems to be doing really well through all this. Dr. Garmong, how are you doing this, morning for you in China?
Yes, Guangzhou.
And evening for us in Motown. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm having a great day, actually, so far. Of course, it's exactly 6:05 a.m. here.
In the morning.
A lot of day left.
Exactly.
However, everyone has been better than the one before in the last week or so. Now, I've been on a cancer journey for, oh gosh, it seems like a decade, but it's been close to a year now. I was diagnosed in February of last year with an NIT, which let me see if
NIT.
brain and ET, chemotherapy brain at 6 in the morning. This is a neuroendocrinological tumor.
That's a mouthful.
It is.
If you can still say neuroendocrinological, you're still doing pretty well at 6 in the morning.
Yeah. This I was diagnosed with it about a year ago, not a year ago, back in February. As I say, it seems like a year ago. So it's been about half a year now. And this particular kind of cancer is actually regarded as one of the better ones to have if you have to have a cancer.
Wow.
It's a genetic one. So number one, you don't have to beat yourself up over, what job you took or
right. Too much
vendors you had in college or whatever.
Spent too much time with Oppenheimer.
But my joke is that the worst thing about being diagnosed with cancer was that I could no longer take credit for all that wonderful weight loss I'd gone through the year before. Because I'd had this year when I went from like 220 pounds down to about 180, and I was looking great and
wow,
exercising.
It's real self-discipline there.
Yeah, no kidding. And then all of a sudden, boom. No, it's just you've been eating yourself from the inside.
Jeez.
Anyway, joking aside, this happens to be a very slow-moving cancer. And it's a relatively benevolent kind of cancer in that it doesn't spread very rapidly. It doesn't like to make friends.
Yeah.
So,
do I understand from the previous interview that this one responds well enough to chemotherapy and radiation that you might be able to avoid surgery altogether?
well, I'm going to have some surgery, but
Okay.
there are a lot of different surgical options, and my chemotherapy actually has been going way ahead of schedule. Apparently,
great.
other than the cancer, my body is extremely healthy. So, it's a little bit like, apart from that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? But,
Right.
but anyway, my body has responded extremely well to the chemotherapy. The tumor mass has reduced by more than half the last time they tested.
Wow.
It's great.
My pH level is at a normal non-cancer patient level. So
That's great.
I'm really nearing the end of the treatment. I'd be careful when I say I'm nearing the end.
Yeah, don't leave that sentence there.
Of the treatment.
Looks like I'm going to be going in for chemo in another week or so, which now, if you haven't been through this with a loved one or whatever, chemotherapy is a pretty universal thing. It's gotten much, much better. It ain't your daddy's chemo anymore. I remember when my stepfather went through cancer, and at the end of his life, it was, let's just say you understood why some people opted out of chemotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
But today's chemotherapy is much, much milder. However, it still has a certain cycle to it. And now I'm in China, so the hospital system is a little different from the way it is in the US, but the basic, the cancer is cancer. So when I go in for chemotherapy, now, first of all, in the US, they generally would keep you for a few hours, as I understand it, they would keep you for a few hours for observation. They hang an IV bag on you and or a little box with
Yes.
a pump on it.
Every time.
And
I
then you
I walk into a hospital, I ask for directions, and they put an IV in my arm. That seems like it's the hospital in the U.S. It's what they always do. So what happens when you go in for a session in China?
Well, in China, they don't do the outpatient thing so much. They want you there. So you check in, and then of course the IV part and the chemotherapy part are essentially the same. However, we can go off on a tangent on the healthcare system. Then that's a whole different thing. So let's not go too far down that rabbit hole, but you kind of depend on when there's an available bed. And so you may go in they tell you there's going to be a bed available today. You may go in at 10 o'clock in the morning when they told you to, and your bed becomes available at 10 o'clock at night. I've had it be that I walked right in and they said, here you go. But I've also had it be that I'm sitting on this hard bench seating for literally 12 hours on my second or third instance. Anyway, it's not a system that's designed for comfort. So
Well, I've got to say, lately, it doesn't seem like the U.S. hospitals are much better than that. But one thing that's very much different, you mentioned checking in, almost like a hotel. You're in China, so of course they're going to pay for everything, right? Isn't it all communist, socialized?
Universal health care.
Yeah. I guess it turns out that wasn't the case.
Not quite. They, in fact, have essentially what we traditionally think of in the U.S. as socialized medicine. Now, they do have a lot of government insurance that you pay into as a working person, and then it pays out when you're in the hospital. But as far as like a British system, for example, with the NHS, there's none of that kind of thing. It is not not quite so socialized as that. You pay as you go, and you pay essentially in advance. So on your first visit, you open an account with the hospital, and you top it off with maybe $5,000 equivalent if you're in for something serious. And then you spend that down, and when you check out, they give you a report on how much money you have left in your account. And then when that runs out, you top it up again, just like your Virgin mobile phone account, only slightly larger. And if you cannot pay, if you run out of money, tough luck. If eventually, you keep topping it up, if you run out, then they will not continue to treat you. And it's not like the U.S. where you wait for a bill and they wait for you to pay, and if you don't pay, then you get a nasty letter in the mail. No, they have bouncers. The bouncers will come and move your stuff to the front of the hospital.
Yep.
But you never see that because, of course, no one lets it happen. If they can't pay, they just stay home. But very different system.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you, the majority of the people who watch our show are fans of Ayn Rand. A lot of them would call themselves objectivists. And you've written a book called Why Objectivism, targeted at newcomers to the philosophy, a great primer for folks who are new to Ayn Rand. And when objectivists hear about this kind of situation, they say, well, the way things should be, if something bad ever happened to you, you'd have a certain amount of savings. But if it was really bad, well, there's charities. And, people would help each other out. And I hear people say that, but I sometimes wonder, well, you say that, but would you? But Amy, you heard about Dr. Garmong's situation.
I did.
And of course, a lot of the people watching right now, this is a gratitude episode, so you already know the spoiler here. But Amy, how did you come to be involved in Dr. Garmong's cancer journey?
I've been Facebook friends with Robert for a long time. I've always admired your work. And then you came on to Facebook and said, hey, I'm in a bit of a pickle here and going through these treatments. And I'm wondering if maybe I could, raise some funds for the treatments here. And then everybody in the comments said, well, do you have a GoFundMe page? And I looked at this and I thought, I thought this is what I thought, because I've had a lot of friends and family who have gone through cancer, and some who have sadly passed away and everything. And we've both Robert and I have gone through cancer journeys. My mom had breast cancer. Two good friends of ours have cancer in remission. And we've also been through people, who have passed away, and we've helped them and gone through that. So it's not something that scares me. And if it ever happened to me, I know exactly what to do. At least I would hope so.
And this is not your first GoFundMe, so you have a little bit of experience with the platform.
That's right. I also work in marketing, first of all, so I have that kind of brain. So, and I thought, you know what? Let's go ahead and just set up a GoFundMe page for Robert, and then people will say, hey, okay, I'm going to go ahead and donate. Here is your GoFundMe page.
And did people donate?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
By way of background, GoFundMe is blocked in China,
yes.
So I cannot set up my own GoFundMe.
Right.
Oh, yeah, if anybody's wondering, why didn't Dr. Garmong just do them? It turns out it's not that simple.
It's not simple. As a matter of GoFundMe is not does not support fundraising out of China. They have a list of countries who they do not work with, and China is one of them. And through the
China blocks GoFundMe.
Yes.
And GoFundMe blocks China.
That doesn't make it easy, does it?
Double whammy.
And they're just about the best platform for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
through a lot of luck and a lot of perseverance, we actually made it happen. And so we're able to directly get you the funds. And I won't go into all the details, but
it turns out that if you go to a bunch of Ayn Rand fans and say, you folks say you believe in voluntary charity, here's a charity that's worth supporting, will you support it? It turns out they'll say, well, hell yeah.
Yes. As a matter of fact, maybe this is a good time. We can go through our top 8 great supporters.
Yeah, folks, if you have already contributed and you chose not to be anonymous, I hope you don't mind. We're gonna call you out.
Yes, we're calling you out and we're giving you praise.
And we're going to start with, again, not to suggest that there's any contributions that are not appreciated, but there are a few people we've got to start out with because some of the contributions have been kind of jaw-dropping.
Yeah, I won't mention any numbers or anything like that, but just the top here is Adam Wildowski. Adam Wildowski is a friend of ours. He's an excellent dancer. He does clogging, and
he's a professional bridge player. He earns his living playing. How great a life is that?
Pretty amazing.
Travel around the world playing cards.
Thank you, Adam. And Darlene Price is our next one here. We've got Pratik Taloli, I believe is an objectivist I've heard of before. Keith Didion. Thank you, Keith. Adam Reed. We all know who Adam Reed is.
Great Dr. Adam Reed.
Yep. John Prescott. Stephen
Boydston.
Yeah, Stephen
Dr. Boydston. Excellent.
And Ben Bear.
Dr. Bear.
Dr. Ben Bear.
Excellent.
Yes. And also, let's call out the.
Are we ready to call out our top sharers?
Yeah, let's start from the bottom up.
Yeah,
How about that?
A huge shout out to Steve Henderson,
who
we got to go to the Ann Arbor Art Show with last night. He's local to us in Motown. Thank you for sharing, Steve, and bringing more people in.
Yeah.
The artist Luke Travers has shared this GoFundMe as well, and he's brought folks in too, because Luke has a little different circle of friends than ours, and he's worldwide. He travels around the world teaching people how to appreciate art more. So thank you, Luke. And finally, and this may be the funnest part of what is a very serious issue, but Joel Marquez.
Yes.
Joel Marquez is an Ayn Rand fan, but he's also a Ted Lasso fan.
Yes.
And it just happens that he has started, and there's many of them, but he started one of the very successful Ted Lasso discussion groups. Ted Lasso, that TV series Robert's always talking about? Yeah, I did a whole episode about it.
It's called Ted Lasso Talk.
So look on Facebook for Ted Lasso Talk. And Joel runs a great group, and he's a good moderator, which means he doesn't have people going on there talking about their personal stuff, like fundraising. But he made an exception for himself because he's the mod, and he said, I don't mean to be a pest, and if you're not interested, just read past this. If you know anything about Ted Lasso, you'll recognize the style. No pressure, but if you're interested, we have a friend who's going through a challenge right now. You just want to put in $2 or $5. And the amazing thing is he put in just one message.
Yep.
And there have been, I don't know, hundreds. There's been thousands of dollars have come in through this Ted Lasso group. Folks, if you're still waiting to see the show Ted Lasso because you hear me talk about its charm and benevolence, if that doesn't convince you, this is a show you've got to see.
It is.
So yes, huge shout out. Joel, if you happen to be watching this show, you're the best. And we said that online, and we're saying it here too.
I've been a member of Joel's Ted Lasso group since very early on. I also am a massive Ted Lasso fan, in mourning right now because the show has
it's over,
ended.
yeah.
But and the thing about Joel is that his style of moderation on that group fits seamlessly with the nature of the show.
Yes.
That's why people who are attracted to that show are so attracted to that group, because the discussion is always benevolent. He doesn't let things get out of hand, and yet you never see a heavy hand of moderation from above, as it were.
You're absolutely right. And he does. He's taken moderation actions, but always with kindness and reasonable explanations and enormous generosity. And
so I've been a huge fan of his and of his group, and of course of Ted Lasso. I would say it's literally the only show that I 100% love in the last 20 years, probably. So very sad to see it go, but then I had no idea that such generosity would come from that quarter, and just in general, I've been so overwhelmed. Everything, a $5 contribution to the very heavy hitting ones, just make my jaw drop. The idea how many people out there are willing to, well, I shouldn't go down that road. Just how many people have paid attention and care. That's really impressive.
Yes. And part of it is that your case is a heartening one to follow.
Yeah.
Those of us who have known you through the years, who have known, well, this is a brilliant objectivist educator, but also a man who, is willing to leave the States to follow his dreams and go to China and marry and raise a family and start a Montessori school and write, and the kind of person who, this guy's on tough times. You want to help. You want to be a part of it. You want to play a little role in that. If there's anybody out there who's come across the GoFundMe and thought, well, I don't have $20 or $100 to give right now, if you want to put in $5, trust me, that will be appreciated.
Yes.
And you'll feel better for having done it as well. It's not sacrifice, it's just benevolence. And Yeah, especially with the Ted Lasso group coming in. Most of whom aren't going to be objectivists. They're just good people. We did
They don't know Adam other
Right.
than that this guy that they know to be a kind-hearted and smart guy
Yep.
recommended it. So,
And that's all they need to know. We did an episode, Dr. Garmong, of this show, 5 Minutes with Robert Amy Nasir, recently called I've Seen All Good People. Stole the title from a song by the band Yes. And just talking about how we had recently gone to the orchestra and to a flamenco concert. And when I look at those musicians, and I look at those dancers, and I look at the audiences, and 99.8% of those people are just decent, good. They're not objectivists. Many of them have never read Ayn Rand. If they were going to go on a journey in philosophy, they would have a long way to go. But they're good people. And to see that Ted Lasso group come across in just that way of just good people, want to play a small role in making something good happen, and
They're like I looked up what they were saying, and they were saying things like, this is just a great way to start the day, and thank you so very much, Joel, for posting this. And it was just I was so happy and just so thrilled to see so many people on that Ted Lasso page respond in the comments on Joel's post. It was so my heart grew light, and it was just a great feeling and a wonderful thing to see.
Yeah, so we do want to, again, I want to shout some of these people out. I'm just going to read a bunch real quick. We'll see if we can get through them all. We'll take a couple little breaks to do this. And Amy just handed me a sheet of paper. Of course, it's got Andrew Bernstein's name in it with a generous contribution. Thank you, Andrew Bernstein. Jane Erickson, Luke Travers, of course, is on there. John Prescott, Stanley O'Shea, Joel Marquez, Margaret Maluski, Joanne Oliver, Julian Chote, Susan Rudhe, Megan Menis, I hope I'm not butchering anybody's names, but I'm sure I'm going to get a couple of them wrong. Sorry about that. Courtney Claiborne, Dottie Moffett, Roma Haling, Jody Sellenberg, Joni McGovern, Sarah Byrne, Lynn Schifris, Paul Gowing, Nicole, you good people, Paul Gowing, Nicole Mangino, Angela Thomas, Daphne Sashin, Wendy Shapiro, Peter Bergman, Catherine Murray, Jennifer Flores, Cindy Quinn. You are just some of the best people, and thank you so much for being a part of this.
That's great. And let me go ahead and
You're going to read a few?
So Robert and I were going to be taking turns reading here.
Okay, well then we'll get through it quick.
Okay, William Stotts, Richard Parna Alterner, Larry Salzman, Aaron West, Rob Flitton, Adam Ossoff, Adam Wildowski, mentioned him earlier, Jeff Huber, Paul Murphy, Jordan Zimmerman, Sarah Camaresi, Ben Bear, Mark Peters, Mark Wickens, Heike Larson, Ricardo Burke. We know who you are, Ricardo. David Pritchard. We know David very well. Eleanor Watson, Lance Carter, Roberto Rachewski, Randall Vector, Julie Schaefer, Stephanie Ozine, Steve Henderson, John Piquette.
Too cool. We'll do more in a bit.
Well, why don't we do one more page real quick?
Do one more page?
Yeah, let's.
All right, I'll do one more. I'll read quickly, but I don't want to give anybody short shrift.
Right.
But you all deserve to be called out. Michael Collier, Susan Cassidy, Jessica Ryan, Lisa Clark, Pulalani Mons, Megan Sanders, Margaret Rutka, Daniel O'Donohue, Jessica Vachareka Van Urich. Hope I got that right. Melba Gant, Deborah James, Harry Mullen, Karen Jones, Nadine Ripplemeyer, Jessica Haddix, Paul Kolar, Angela Drum, Jill Feeney. You guys are so good. Deanne Robertson, Lisa Blackmore, Colleen Ferris, Pam Cochran, Brenda Miller, Leanne McAllister, Amy Beller, Dawn Marie Bernhard, Nolan Shanahan. Thank you so much. You people rock.
And one more page for me until we get to the next few pages.
Well, you're almost done there. We're getting there.
We're getting there. So we've got Sarah Hollander, Jeff Bannister. You know who you are. He's a great supporter of ours and many others. Jim Ashley, who I do believe is in the chat. Steve Rogers, really wonderful person. John Bales, Brenda Donegan, Stuart Margolis. Love Stuart. Jennifer Lionberger, the most beautiful woman in the world. Who I know, not just saying that. W. Dean Cook, Darlene Price, as we mentioned before, Stephen Boydston, Mr. Albert Humphreys, Gary Menard, Tom Bowden, Enric Teller, Matthew Gerber, Michael Garrett, James May, Mary Aline Arsanto, and another one from Stuart Margolis here, Anne Chicolella, I believe, John Gordon, Peter and Sandra Schwartz,
Oh my gosh.
Don Watkins, Johnny Ruiz, and Carrie Ann Biondi. Thank you. Oh my
Super
goodness.
sweet. Now, Dr. Garmong, I've got to say, reading through these names, in the Objectivist community, we've had a few squabbles. We've had a few dust-ups. And yet, I'm reading names of people who I haven't spoken to in years, not out of anger, just because things drifted. And now I just want to get in touch with all these people again. Is this a great list of people or what?
Well, and there are people, of course, over half of those people I don't recognize the names whatsoever.
Right?
Many of those, I'm sure, are from the Ted Lasso group.
Yes.
Some of them are my family members, so...
So the ones we don't recognize, but love to know that they're there.
And then I have friends who I've been friends with since college, and I have, of course, former teachers of mine on that list. So it's an incredible list of people. So and yeah, people that I haven't worked with in many years for various reasons, but have come through for me. So I really, again, I'm a Midwesterner. I'm not from Michigan. I grew up on the banks of the Mississippi in Moline, Illinois.
Wow.
And about 3 hours out of Chicago. And so, but we had that kind of, hard-working mentality, the benevolence, but also the idea that you don't really reach out and ask for help necessarily.
No, you don't want to be a burden, and you want to be self-sufficient. And yeah, it can be hard to change gears when you need to turn that around. Now, on that note, there's somebody in the chat. The author, Jim Ashley, is asking, and he says it's a delicate question, so you decide if you want to address this. But he asks this: can you tell us how you're able to keep your spirits up? Is it possible for just about anyone in your situation to maintain a positive attitude, especially without denying the reality of it? That's Jim's question. What do you think?
Well, I'm not going to say just about anyone, because everyone's circumstances are different, and I'm actually working on a story for my various online locations right now about a time very early on when my benevolent attitude was very sorely shaken, because it really looked as though, and one of the doctors told me as much, you're going to die. And they said, I heard them when they forgot I can understand Chinese.
Oh, no.
2 months. I heard 2 weeks. So there was a period when I didn't do a whole lot of posting on Facebook about funny memes or whatever. So I'm not, and it's, there is such a thing as toxic positivity, I think they call it.
Oh, yes, we talked about that.
Where, that idea that, well, if you just were as happy-go-lucky as I am, then you wouldn't even have cancer. And this is a very Chinese attitude, by the way.
Oh.
Many in China tell me that usually it's in the form of, you'll get better if you just don't think about it too much. And just, someone once told me, instead of paying all that money for chemotherapy, which makes you look like this and sound like this, this was early on, you should just pay the money and go traveling.
Oh,
And you'll get better much faster. Well, so sorry, that question sort of touched me off on that.
No, I
oh,
understand.
totally get it.
However, I would say that there are specific disciplines that I try to remember. One is to spend some time every day reading things that I think are funny. So my funny memes and you know, and things that make me happy. Excuse me. Oh, good. I'm gonna have a good voice day.
Whatever it
so-
takes.
Yeah. So it's very important to have some good value time, preferably early in the morning. It's also very important for me, and this is something that I am not very good about every day, but get up and move around. My bedroom happens to be in a very dark part of the house, so I could go a whole day without any direct sunlight. Very important not to let that happen. Now that I'm consistently able to do so, I try to get outside and actually be out in the sun every day. So those things keep my attitude up as much as possible. And the other thing is to express it. And that's why you see me on Facebook. Even if I don't have anything to say, I'll be posting those proof of life memes we talked about last time.
Proof of life, yeah. Just like a kidnapper would have to provide. Love that.
Try to make sure that every day I'm communicating, especially the positive part. Now, if I don't have anything good to say, you know, I don't say nothing at all, to quote the great philosopher Bambi. But if I can, I try to make sure that I express positive, you know, if I can tell a story, if I can even just post a few memes, that makes me feel better. And it boosts that positive attitude. But really, and here's part of why I was touched off a little bit by the question, because I get it a lot from my Chinese friends. If you haven't been practicing this already, if you don't already have an integrated benevolence and an integrated sort of value orientation, when you're on your back from chemotherapy is not the time you're going to get that. No.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you bring into the situation, I guess.
Yep.
You've got the you go to war with the army you've got.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and the premises you've got. Sure.
I had we go through this in cohorts, and because we because they keep us in there in the Chinese hospital overnight for 3 and 4 days at a time, you tend to get to know the people pretty well, and you get to know their family members. There's one woman who is recovering better than I am, and by all objective measures, but she's just got the worst, most negative attitude. And her poor son has to come from a province probably an hour away from here to come help her every month when she goes in for her chemotherapy. And she's gotten a little better now. She's almost done with the process, but she makes everything miserable for everyone. And I guarantee she's slowed her own progress toward wellness, because she feels like God has chosen her for some sort of unjust punishment.
Ugh.
Whatever it is, I don't know which particular religious belief it is, but
That's downright tragic and unpleasant for you to have to be around. But it also shows the little kernel of truth in that toxic positivity is if you've got the right attitude, at least you're more likely to do the right things.
Right.
That's unfortunate. She's got a better prognosis, but she's making it worse on herself.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
and of course the worst thing I could do is to say, hey, be happy,
Right.
you'll get better.
Well,
I would
Yeah, I
I
think
would maybe die of another cause than cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's possibly maybe Harry Benswanger one day can find a causal link to this. The idea of being more open to knowledge and to integration and getting the information, treatments, all the information that you need to recover from something is helped by your willingness to be positive, to be proactive, to be pro-effort in that way, and seeing yourself actually take action and actually have those doors open to you, and instead of completely closed off to you, if that's that the negative perspective in that way is not good for gaining new knowledge and helping yourself recover from something.
And it's not as though I said, hey, I'm going to have a great attitude about this.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I realized I had a good attitude is when people started saying it on my Facebook comments. Thanks for your great attitude about this. I'm like, well, what? This is just, isn't this what you do?
Right.
But again, that gets back to, it really matters how you live your whole life, not just in crisis time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not just in the good times either, but the whole of your life.
Yeah, and I'm sure it sounds... I'm sure you have mixed feelings about people telling you, oh, well, the way you're handling this makes me feel better. Like, yeah, okay. But at the same time, it goes to...
No mixed feelings about that. No, none whatsoever. I always really, really appreciate that.
Oh, good.
That's great.
Getting some people who themselves are going through cancer, if they have that, if they take something positive from my attitude, then I really, really appreciate that. And in fact, the first time someone commented on my good attitude, it really made me stop and think. I really appreciated it personally a great deal, because I hadn't really thought about that aspect. But I certainly really appreciate anyone, if now don't just all flood my inbox. Oh, you blah, blah, blah. but really, especially people who are themselves going through cancer or have recently gone through it. And I had one person say, "I wish I'd had your Facebook when I was going through chemo."
Mm-hmm.
That just really, that's a reward that's totally unique unto itself. So I'm sorry I cut you off there.
No, not at all. I was going to mention that there are some great comments in the chat on YouTube. Make sure that you get a chance to read some of those. Dale, for example, Day Grezel is saying, "This is never fun. I've been doing charity rides, mostly with Team in Training for LLS, for fundraising to fight cancer, 6 times around Lake Tahoe. Unfortunately, more cases come all the time." Thank you, Dale. Thank you for the comment. Thank you for your generosity as well.
Dale, thank you so very much. As we were just talking, Dale went on to the GoFundMe. You can find that at tinyurl.com/Garmong, and you can see it up on the screen. And he just donated, so thank you, Dale.
Yes.
And
a donation from the guitarist Christopher Smith as well.
Yes.
So thank you very much for that.
Oh my goodness, that's so great.
Musicians really warm my heart. I went to grad school in Austin, And
some of the best guitarists in the world.
Let me derail for a second. When I was in grad school at one point, and of course, don't have two pennies to rub together. So I ended up rooming for a bit with this old hippie guy with a little scraggly long hair and the classic. We're talking classic hippie kind of guy. And let's just say not a house that I cared to live in for very long.
Right.
But he told the story of rolling up to Austin in the early 70s and just looking for a guitar teacher. And he said there was a guy who had an ad in the paper. It was Eric Johnson. So his guitar teacher was Eric Johnson.
Unbelievable.
Out of classifieds.
Wait, tell us who Eric Johnson is.
Eric Johnson is just an A-list guitarist. He's not a pop player, so a lot of people haven't heard of him. Start with his instrumental Cliffs of Dover, and it brings tears to my eyes, this particular track. Just amazing.
Anyway.
So yeah, that would be a heck of a guitar teacher. I'm sorry that your hippie friend didn't give you a more pleasant living experience, but it is a great story.
I came away with a lot more stories than that one, believe me.
Yes.
Well, I think right now is a good time to read some more names here.
Oh, maybe we'll get through the list real quick here. We definitely want to shout these people out.
Yeah,
real quick here.
And a lot of these folks on these pages are from the Ted Lasso page. So thank you so very much again, Joel, for your post on that.
A lot of very American-looking names that'll be easy on the tongue. Let's see if we can get through these real quick. Huge shouts out to Renee Stevenson, Christian Duggan. Thank you, Amanda Irvin, Alyssa Bird, Barbara Bassell, Carrie Hessler, Anna Crafton. I know, Dr. Garmong, we have you sitting there as we read these names, but every one of these people are your benefactors, large and small. They're all awesome. Jill Riley, Paula Joins, Annie Ran, Danielle Renfro. Thank you so much, Patty Murray, Carol Burns, Carol Abney, Elaine DeRico, Susan Walsh, Colleen Dillard, Stacy Conkin. I read these names and I think there's a person behind every one of these names. Michelle Oliver, Ann Morris, Kathy Stratton, Charlotte Soriano, Kay Galloway, Sarah Birkendine, Elizabeth Nannis, Amy Hartman, Kimberly Jones. Thank you. Thank you for being a part of what has been super inspiring to me.
And just do this page and I'll do the rest.
And Helen Foster, Bettina Yip, Stephanie Matthews, Tammy Spake, Jessica Hansen, Dawn Leslie, Sarah Nadolny, Jill Jones, Janine Powell, Joyce Friedley. I was going to read that friendly because you people are so awesome. Joyce Friedley, Annie Jacobson, Elisa Berg, Gia Moore, Marcy Jones, Celeste O'Connor. I love that name, O'Connor. I know another O'Connor.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being a part of this.
And I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this list here.
Okay, wrap it up.
Of course, in the meantime, if you want to go over to the URL that you see on the screen, it's easy enough to go to tinyurl.com/Garmong, Garmong.
This show's about gratitude. We're not trying to get more donations, but just in case you've got it in mind.
Donations are always very welcome. So we've got Mary Peters, Sharon Lave, Sherry Hogue, Julie Brown, Lois Marignagelli, Claudia True, Mary Spears, Zedana Restock, I'm very sorry, Jill Clothier, Rachel Howarth, Michelle Madden, Marion Arscott.
I often say the only reason I started a podcast is so I could get people to pronounce my name right when they would hear me say it. So yeah, some names are harder than others, but huge shout out to everyone.
If you want to be really funny, you're welcome to go ahead and go on to GoFundMe and put your name as something that I can't pronounce so that we can have a good laugh. All right. We've got Lachetia Shevek, Lauren Horton, Adam Harrell, Jennifer Fisher, Kay Adams, Melissa Webster, Pamela Ray, Jamie Babbitt, Lisa Murfin, Marilyn Browning, Kim Blair, Troy Bailey, Jamie Holmes, Catherine Graham, Becky Bella, Christina Anderson, Martin Cade. I do believe I know that fellow. Amanda Sullivan, Ni-Chen Liang, Susan Short, Teresa Campos, Angela Barwick, Amelia Tuckwiller, cool name, Angela Barwick, another one actually from Amelia Tuckwiller. There you are. Flor Amaro, and finally, Anita Sinha, and finally, Ann Fuller. Thank you.
You're right. We didn't get any parody names in there. You would think, that like D's Nuts or Dick Long would have made a contribution. Folks, there's your chance. Put in a couple more dollars. Well, anyway, huge shout out to everybody.
Amazing.
It really has been heartening. And as you were saying, Dr. Garmong, the objectivist community has come through with generously and in some cases with massive contributions. But even these small contributions from 100 people on the Ted Lasso group, so heartening.
It means so much to me personally. And, I've spent my whole life, practically since I was about 15 years old, reading Ayn Rand, studying Ayn Rand's philosophy. And, I'm a card-carrying objectivist, even in China. Good thing we don't actually have a card, but
that could be they could hold that against you.
Well, the books are in all the bookstores, so not to worry about that. But except for Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal.
Wow.
The one they need more than anything.
Atlas and the Fountainhead are pretty hard to find here also, but you can find them occasionally. But anyway, I digress. I've spent my whole life, and especially since college days, and especially in graduate school, when people would parody egoism as the idea that nobody else matters but yourself, and a combination of narcissism and extreme Ebenezer Scroogeism. And I have always argued that the most benevolent people are the most egoistic.
Yes.
Because they're pursuing their own values legitimately from their heart and not because they feel they must. And I feel like this whole incident this whole past 7 months now has been vindication for all those arguments over all these years. So thank you. Not that I'm here to make a philosophical point. I'd rather make it some other way.
Yes. Well, everything is philosophy, one way or another. As a graduate in philosophy, you know that more than most of us do. And we're getting to see it. Again, the worst of things, you wouldn't want it to happen to your worst enemy, much less your best friend, but we're getting to see that in action. And again, with these small contributions, zero sacrifices. Right. This is just a value to me. Put it out there. And
if you want that value for value, you're welcome to find Robert Garmong on Facebook, and you will see his funny memes that he will post.
Yes.
And on top of that, if you would like to support his book, which is called
Why Philosophy. The link is in the show notes. If you go into the description on YouTube, you will find links to Why Philosophy on Amazon. You can order yourself a copy, but you'll also find links to Dr. Garmong's YouTube channel. Now, for a while there, you were posting, especially around the time COVID was starting, some very interesting videos about the situation from the point of view of somebody in China.
Here's how old I am. I remember when COVID was a China thing. All my friends in the States back in March of 2020 were saying, "What's it like? Is it, are you totally locked down?" Which we were, so I made some YouTube videos, just a handful, and I never really did much with it. I've thought about picking that up again as a more philosophical page for more of this kind of discussion about egoism and so on. and I've been doing a little bit more objectivist philosophical work. As you mentioned, I don't call it a book, I call it a booklet.
Right.
It's about 50 or 60 pages. Philosophy, why philosophy, the importance of Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism. And that one is envisioned as the introduction or even the preface of a full introduction to Ayn Rand's ideas. And there have been many such, of course, and each one has its emphasis. Of course, Leonard Peikoff wrote the magnum opus on Ayn Rand's ideas, and there's Galt's speech and Atlas Shrugged and so on. There are many, many different ways you can get into the details of Ayn Rand's ideas.
Well,
but
from my perspective, the value of books like your book, and as you say, there are others. Tara Smith's Viable Values, for example, are good starting places. But for folks who are just starting to read Ayn Rand and want to see these ideas from more than one voice, I think your book and Tara's book, I think those are extremely valuable, especially for people just learning about this and saying, whoa, what is this?
And my sort of take on it, or my orientation, what makes my approach somewhat unique or at least different, is exactly what we've been talking about. I really put front and center the focus on values and benevolence. So throughout, as I work on the ethics section in particular, because that can be very thorny stuff, a lot of fire and brimstone left over from religious philosophies. You don't become immune to those by picking up a copy of Atlas Shrugged.
Right, the scarecrow morality,
So as I go through the whole process, my emphasis is on, what would a benevolent high school student want? They may be turned off by a big tome about Ayn Rand's ideas, or by the fire and brimstone kind of approach that some people take, but more of a values orientation, that's what really attracted me to Ayn Rand's philosophy in the first place.
Yes.
Was exactly this benevolence.
Yeah, I appreciate that enormously. There's already enough ways for the angry young man to get into these ideas, but I wasn't that guy either. I just wanted to understand better.
Yes, and the angry young woman as well.
Yes.
I had a little of both, I have to say.
Me too.
I like the fire and brimstone myself, in more so in younger days, but some of those angry screeds from the objectivist community had some appeal for me.
Sure.
I was pretty early on. I started in the 1984 or so, and so there were a lot of little broadsides printed on somebody's home. What do you even call them? Not Xerox, but their home with the blue print. Anyway.
Oh yeah, the old copy machines and handouts and.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So I'm old school. I remember when you could buy those things, and some of those, were appealing to a certain.
I published my own handout.
Yes, you did, on a dot matrix printer.
Yeah, and then I eventually bought a laser printer so I can make it look totally pro. Did a newsletter called The Reality Check. But we all had our anger as well. And we should. There's a lot to be angry about. But the benevolence aspect, to me, that's...
And values are primary.
Values are primary. We're here to live a life. I mean, you got to do some fighting, but...
It's in the focus.
Yeah, that's not the end. The end is a life that's an end in itself. Well, Dr. Garmong, you obviously are literally fighting for your life, and it's really heartening to see both that you're getting enormous support and that, at least at this point, things seem to be going well.
Yeah. However, the just saying, the campaign is going to keep on going. It's not going to stop until we see you nice and healthy and happy and through all of your treatments. And again, that GoFundMe page is going to be up there. If anybody has any ideas for fundraising for me, I'm trying to assemble a team of folks and everything. And I want to give a shout out to Ricardo Burke, who has been feeding me all sorts of ideas. I just need to figure out how to delegate them now. So if you would like to be on Team Garmong, please contact me. You know where to find me. If you have any, if just share it. You know, if you've got a lot of, say, for instance, Twitter followers, please share this video that we're doing right now. Share the GoFundMe page and let people know, just like Joel Marquez did, that this is something valuable and that you should look into it. And it's definitely a benevolent story, and it's an amazing story, I think. One that I think is very inspirational for a lot of people. So please don't be shy in letting other people, your friends, your family, your coworkers, know what's going on. Your other philosophy people, your bridge club, whoever it may be. It's a good thing. So,
Dr. Garmong, is there anything else? I know we had other areas we originally get into, but this has been a great conversation. Anything else you want to share with the folks before we try to wrap this up?
Well, the last thing is, we've been shouting out all and sundry here, but I really want to shout out Amy, because I had no intention for any of this to develop. I was thinking maybe my friends would, people who had known me for decades would maybe give me, $100 or something, but she took this and made it into something that actually might save my life, because we were literally running out of money when this thing started. So thank you.
I can't, there are certain things that you can't say in words. And that's very, thank you so very much, Robert. It's been a wonderful thing going on this journey with you. And, it's been very gratifying and very, very value fulfilling. So thank you. And I'm keeping the eye on the prize.
So I'm absolutely going to second that. Thank you, Robert Garmong. Thank you to you. Thank you. I know you feel really grateful, and you have reason to, because people have been great. But we thank you for your inspiration. Thank you for being a fighter through this. Every time one of our friends faces a challenge like that, it brings something to us too. And I know everybody who's watching out there is feeling that. Everybody out there, thank you. Thank you for joining us, of course. As always, Sundays at 6 o'clock, but especially this time, I'm going to leave out the usual show closing. I just want to express my gratitude to Dr. Garmong, to all of you out there, to Amy for making the fundraising happen, for all of you for responding. You really are the best audience in podcasting.
I concur.
So join us next Sunday, 6 o'clock. In the meantime, it's never too late to donate. If you got $5 in your pocket and you're like, no, I don't want coffee today, do that. Otherwise, no pressure. Y'all have been the best. Dr. Garmong, we are wishing you the best on your journey. We will be checking in as we go along and sharing any updates and any news as they go. Thank you so much for this conversation. Again, it's inspiring, it's heartening, and I've had a smile on my face the whole hour. It's such a serious topic, and now my cheeks are sore from smiling. Thank you so much.
Thank you.